Hello guys, so this is part 2 of this Interact dot. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave a link for that one in the description. So in this part we will be covering the name changing and the icon changing. So let's begin. Okay, so in the Interact dot, we need to add the item name, so we want it to display at the bottom of this dot. So let's add a text. Drag that into the canvas panel, and let's name this TX item name. And in the text, let's just write item name as well. Let's set the anchor to the center and set the position to 0. Size to content, take that on. And let's center the X to 0.5, and let's bring it down on the Y by -1.2. And from there we want this text to change depending on the item that we're looking at. So let's go to the text and let's create a binding. Let's rename this to get item name. And so right now we don't have a reference to our character. So in the event graph, under pre-construct, we can get rid of these two for now. We can cast to the PP third person character, and in the object, drag off and get player character. Oops. And let's promote this one to a variable, so drag off and promote to variable. And so we go to the get item name function, drag this one off, and from here we want to get the item reference, but first we need to go back to the third person, and in this branch we get the hit actor. Then we promote this one to a variable, call it interact reference, and we can get rid of this for now and plug that into the true. And in the false, we want to copy paste this one, but leave this connection blank, so it will delete the interact reference there. And so if we head back to the interact dots, we can get that reference now, interact reference. And if you remember, we made this this BPI interact, this interface, which has this function called get item info. So if this reference does implement it, we can get this function, connect it like that. And we need another output from this item info, which will be the structure. So go back to this BPI interact. Under get item info, we add a output, and let's call it st item, and look for the structure st item as well. Yep. Compile and save this one, and just right click on this node and just refresh nodes, and this should show up. Cannot be found. We make sure you compile the third person BP third person as well, and this should, yep, get rid of that error. So from here we can break this structure, connect that to here. Actually, first we need to check if this interact reference is valid. So we can right click this node and say convert to validate get, plug that into there. So if it is valid, then it will get the item info, and when we break it, we get the item name, and we input that here into the text. Let's put that up there. And if we copy paste this one, so from the is not valid, so if this does not hit anything, it will go here. So make sure you connect this branch as well. And this one is if it did hit something but it doesn't have this interface, it will also return false and get rid of this interact reference. So in the interact dot, if none of those are valid, it should show up as no text. So we need that item to run this interface, this get item info. So oops, if we hit this, if we go to the base item and we go under the interface tab, double click the get item info, and from here we just need to pass in the structure. So drag that into there from the variables and plug that in and compile and save, and let's test this out. Let's get rid of this draw debug type. Let's just hit change it to none and press play. Walk up to this item, default item, and the next one, second item. So now we got the text to work, and every time we look off, it disappears. Okay, so now we want the dot image to change, and so we head back to the interact dot. Let's just clean this up a little bit. So in the interact dot, head over to the designer tab. So this is the default dot that's always shown when there is no interaction. So we will hide this when there is something to interact, so we can duplicate this actually. And we'll call this one the actual interact dot. And make sure these position is 0 as well, and make sure it's the same size. But in the brush we will bind it, so create a binding, and in here let's rename the function get interact image, and from this return value, let's add a select node. And so the index, we will pass the enumerator from that from the interact reference. So we can copy paste from the get item name this, yeah, these 4, paste that into there. So if it is valid, we can get the interact type here, and we will plug that into the select node, and you can see these 3 options pop up. So in here we will add our images. So for the use one, we will drag off promote to variable, call it img use, and same with the pickup, promote to variable, image pickup. So in the image use, go under the default value, and let's search that hand, this one, hand outline, and for image pickup, set the image to grab, and for the default one, let's just promote to variable and call it image default, and let's just set that to the white circle. Okay. So yeah, let's test that out. So this second box has the interact type set as pickup and the left one as use. Oh, actually we need to get rid of this one. So back in the interact dot, when it's not valid, just connect that here and just leave it blank so it gets rid of the... Oh, actually we need to set the visibility of this dot as well. So let's drag this here. So when it is valid, let's drag off the default dot. So this one. And let's set this visibility to hidden. So when that's set to hidden, it will use one of these three when we're looking at an item, and copy paste that here. And when it's not valid, set this one to visible, and let's drag the interact dot as well, and we set this visibility to hidden. And actually we need to set this one as well to visible, so copy paste that above, set that to visible. Okay, so let's test this one out. So walk up here. Oh, it does show up as the hand, but it's very small, so we can change the size. Could remove this binding here and just set it to the hand just to see how it looks. Yep, so that looks fine to me. Make sure you select the binding again. So I found that 80 on the X and Y work, and we also need to change the render opacity. Let's put that to 0.8, and let's see how that looks now. So it should be slightly bigger. Yep. Could also bring this one down slightly. So we'll bring the item name down by -1.5. And let's take the default dot and make it slightly smaller, say 20. See how that looks. Okay, so I want to add one more thing before I wrap up this interact dot. So in the third person, I want to add another check before it sets the interact reference. That will be a component. So you can have two meshes inside one object, but one of them will have a tag. So component has tag, and the tag will be called interact. Oops, interact. Make sure you have the same exact spelling in the item. So if you go to, well, actually let's drop the end node here first, the end boolean. So connect that here and this one. So both the object needs to have this interface and the component needs to have this tag in order for it to work. So that should stop these two from working. Yep. So let's head off to the base item and select this mesh and search for tag. And under component tags, make sure you spell it exactly the same. So you could copy paste from the third person. That should be correct. Compile and save the base item. And so these should start working again. Yep. And so the reason we set that up for is for things like doors, where you don't want the frame to be interactable. So from the base item, we can right click and create a child blueprint. And I won't set up the door now, this would just be an example. So we'll call it door, BP door. and so this one will inherit the functions of the base item. So this one will still have that tag, yep, interact, but we want to change this one to the frame, door frame. So this should come with the starter project files. So we'll choose the SM door frame here and get rid of that tag. So, and we add another static mesh that will be the door mesh, and let's add that, let's give that one a tag, and let's call it Interact. And in the door mesh, let's set the static mesh to a door, SM door. Head over to the viewport, make sure that's in place, just like that. Okay, so let's drag that off and see how that works. So when we go up to the door frame, nothing shows up, but when we hit this door, nothing shows up as well. It's because this door actually has no collision by default. So what we can do is go to door mesh, hit this to find the item, double click on the static mesh and go to collisions, and let's just add a Z simplified collision. Yep, so that adds a collision box, and so let's test that out. Oh, so it does work, we just need to change the icon now. So we can head over to the, if it doesn't show here under the variables, head up over to this icon and show inherited variables, turn that on, and there is our st item, and we can change that to use, and item name will be door. So compile and save, let's test that out, and yep, so we get door here, but the frame has no interaction because of this tag that we set up. So we can also, for example, we don't want the user to open the door when looking up here. We want them to focus on the doorknob, so we can also show you an example for that as well. BP door, we can add a collision box collision, and we'll call it interact area, and let's bring that over the doorknob area, scale it down to something like this. Okay, so this one will have the interact tag, so add a tag and make sure the collision for this one is on. By default it's overlap, we want it to go custom, and we want the visibility to be block. That's because in the third person under this line trace we are using the visibility as the trace channel. And in the door mesh, make sure we remove that interact tag. And so let's test this out. So now the door itself, there's no interaction when I look up here, nor the frame. But as soon as I look at this area here, where that collision box is, we get the interact dot. Okay, to actually wrap up this tutorial, let's head over to the third person character, highlight the nodes for the interact dot, and collapse that to a function. Interact dot. Let's rename this one to line trace. And yeah, compile and save that, and there we go. So we have a interact dot with dynamic names and icons, and we can also choose which area this interaction appears. Probably for the next tutorial, I will show when you press E how to interact with the objects. Something similar to this, where it will actually do something when this line trace hits. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Bye.